Welcome, Conservative Patriot Nation, new members and returning members. Tonight we are bringing you another fantastic show with a fantastic guest, someone that has really been helping in the rediscovery of what humanity can do on taking back their power. Barbara is someone I really enjoy listening to her knowledge and advice on many things that can help us. And I felt from God, I said, the first time I laid eyes on a video, I said, oh my goodness, I definitely have to find this woman because humanity definitely needs to bring their power back to themselves and rediscover remedies to take care of themselves and do whatever we can to start getting rid of the poisons. But before we start the show, I would like to recognize one of our sponsors. My Pillow and Mike Lindell has been doing a tremendous service for many people, showing us discrepancies that are going on in our elections. The guy has really put his name, his life, and his career on the line to expose so much. And if you go to mypillow.com and use promo code CPNN, you'll get up to 80% off your purchase. And last but not least, Barbara, thank you for joining us tonight. It's definitely an honor.
It's a pleasure to be here.
You know, Barbara, like I said, look, what we're starting to really, what God is really starting to awaken humanity to realize is all this stuff has been provided for us. And there's been some very shady, evil people that have manipulated and programmed humanity to forget about some of these past remedies. And it's definitely a blessing to have those videos that have been circulating all over the internet, even though I discovered that there's been an imposter impersonating you here on Telegram. But I mean, those videos, they pay so much of a dividend. So what I would like to ask you, when did you awaken to realize, wait a minute, this is not right, and there is a better way for humanity to heal themselves?
Well, it really happened, and I've just turned 70, and my eyes were really started to waken up when I was probably 24, 25, and I had my first baby at 23, and I saw after 6 weeks and 4 courses of antibiotics for an earache, I thought, I don't want this. And every time the antibiotics stopped, the earache came back, and I thought, this doesn't make any sense at all. And I'm a back to nature hippie lifestyle. I don't want to give my child drugs, but I don't want to put my child's health in jeopardy. So I really identify with the mothers because I have felt the frustration of not wanting to go the drugs, but not knowing what to do. Now you can see I've got a broken arm here, and I'm very thankful for the ambulance. I'm very thankful for the painkillers while they put my wrist back into, because it was dislocated. So we don't doubt that medicine will not help in a crisis, but I have to tell you, in the 8 hours I was in casualty, I looked at the majority of people that were there, and with a simple remedy, they need not be there. So I feel a great responsibility, I suppose you could say, to make this information known, because it is simple and it is within the reach of all. But when I was 25, with that experience with my daughter and the antibiotics, that's really when I thought, no. And I started to investigate. I started to speak to old people. What did your mother do when you were a child? I started to read books, and basically that's where it all started.
Wow. And could you give the audience a brief description of your background and what you were in before you really start discovering, wait a minute, oh wow, something could be much better for humanity?
Well, it probably really started when I look at the timeline. We're looking at about 1980 when I started to look at that. And I suppose you could say I'm like a dog at a bone. When I discovered this, when I put that first onion poultice on my second child's ear, and he slept for 2 hours, and he's never had another earache again, and I think he's 45 now, I started. I was on a quest. I thought, this is amazing. And where I got my information from was really, again, old ladies. It was books. I also was a little bit familiar with the American Red Indians and how they had quite a network. I'm sure the Australian Aboriginals did, but I tell you, it's very hard to get information on that. So I began on this quest, and I ended up having 4 more children and certainly trying lots of things. The good news is that they all survived my experiments. And that's another point, is that if the potato poultice doesn't work, you've lost nothing. If the onion poultice doesn't work, you've lost nothing. But I have to tell you that I have found that they do work, and I think that's why my little clips have become so popular, is because people try them and they do work. And if they don't work, they haven't hurt themselves, they haven't lost anything. And so eventually, after many years of doing this, let's say, probably I'm looking at the ages of my children, give me an idea. I think, say 15 years later, I felt a burden to help other mothers, so I started doing meetings, and I would use my children as the patient, so to speak. I'd have one wrapped up with a potato poultice, I'd have one with feet in hot water, and they were so used to it, and they thought it was quite good to be up there and all these people looking at them, because we grew up in a rainforest. And, people say, aren't they socially deprived? I found the opposite was true. They certainly weren't at all. So it was probably about the 1990s that the Thomsonian Institute in Coffs Harbour, they got together and decided to award me a certificate in naturopathy because of my work in the field, because of the amount of people that I'd helped by that stage. It's called the grandfather clause. Unfortunately, it's not recognised anymore, so the claim is that I'm not qualified at all. But anyway, that's another story. And then probably looking at, my first husband was a drug addict and an alcoholic, and 1993, the children and I had to leave home. So I was a single mother for 4 years. And then my eldest daughter worked at a health retreat, so I moved to the area in Queensland, and the business manager asked me to marry him, which was Michael ONeill. We've just had our 26th wedding anniversary, so that was 1997. And a year after we married, he wanted to start his own health retreat, and I was intrigued. I said, yes, one of our daughters cooks, the other one is the massage therapist, the younger kids can all garden, he's the business manager. I said, who will be the health director? He said, you. I said, oh no, I'm just a mother. I like being in the background and I like helping mothers, but that's it. He said, no, you'll be good, and he walked out of the room. So I became the reluctant health director. I was never reluctant to help people, but I didn't ever like to be the star of the show or the main person, so to speak. But I believe that all God's biddings are his enablings. And so I walked into that role in 1998. And then I did a nutrition course. It was, took a couple of years while I still worked as the health director in our health retreat, and got a diploma in dietitian and nutrition and dietetics, and worked our health retreat, got bigger and bigger and bigger. Our children bit by bit left home and married, and that took us to 2019, where the government received a few complaints about me, we believe it's because of my husband's political party. He started a political party on free choice, the Informed Medical Options Party. And we believe that I was taken down because of him, because I always maintain, how can there be a crime with no victim? Which, of course, there is no victim. And if I was guilty of their charges, I would be in jail, and they cannot put a charge on me because no one has been hurt by this. But in 2019, they effectively banned me. So in Australia, I'm forbidden to give any health advice, and I'm forbidden to speak on health, or I will be put in prison for 10 years with a $10,000 fine. So that's where we're up to. And so for the last 3 years, I've spent most of the year. This year was 9 months away. Last year, 7 months. And in 2021, 9 months away, speaking and teaching in Europe, in the United States. So that's a brief history.
Wow, that's really a wonderful story, and like I said, it's definitely have been a blessing to be able to come across your videos. And there's a gentleman that I follow on Twitter that has been sharing a lot of your videos, and I'm like, oh my God, wow, I'm just discovering this now. And um, I even thanked him. I said, if it wasn't for you, I would have never discovered Barbara, and I just really appreciate it. And he really adores you, and he shares a lot of the videos, and I've learned so much, and I've passed it on to family members. And that's how God works. He works through a person to provide the information to the people, and then it's the people that he leads to that person to share that information with others. And I tell you, you have been you probably don't even realize how special you have been to many of us, and I can speak that for everyone that's even listening right now. So I really personally want to thank you, and then I would like to follow that up with, um, do you feel that God played a major intervention role for you to recognize what was good for humanity?
I absolutely agree with you, and I think that he certainly did, because I personally just like being in the background. I have no desire for stardom. I have no desire to be an icon. I just like helping people, and I remember Jesus. One of the first things he read when he was asked to read in church in the temple when he was 30. And it's found in Luke 8, verse 14. He said, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, for he has anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He hath sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to preach deliverance to the captives, recovery of sight to the blind, to set at liberty those that are bruised." This was Jesus' ministry, and I believe that everyone who loves him, everyone who follows him, it will be part of their ministry. And I love that bit right in the middle where he said, "Open the blind eyes." My eyes were opened when my first child in 1977 had an earache and over 6 weeks and 4 courses of antibiotics. My eyes were opened. I thought, this is crazy. The definition of insanity is to do what you've always done and expect different results. But I had no idea of what else to do. And in the little book, Ministry of Healing, was one of my first health books I read by Ellen White. On page 127, she said, "The only hope of better things is the education of people in the right principles." And that sentence really jumped out at me. I thought, yes, it's educating people. Because I have no ability to heal anyone. No, not even a herb has the ability to heal, and definitely no drug can heal you. It's the body, and the body alone that can heal you. And the more I study the body, which I'm still doing because I think it's the most amazing piece of machinery we have, the more I realize that everything we need is in us. We just need to know how to access healing power that God put into our body.
I agree totally. There was one gentleman that I followed. Well, I followed some of his videos as well as was Dr. Sebi, and it's amazing that he says I never went to school, but the women in Africa, they knew healing products, and he says I learned that from my mother and many of the women, and he's healed a lot of people, and they try to put him in prison, the whole spiel. He didn't practice medicine, but he got off when he proved people that he healed, I don't want to say cured, from AIDS, cancer, many dangerous illnesses. He proved it in a courtroom, and he ended up getting off, but he explained that all diseases is a pus, and he says you can only heal the human body with carbon-based products. You can't heal it with chemicals. And I mean, that's when I started having an awakening explosion, like, wow, okay, that makes total sense. Because I mean, we look at so many different foundations and societies of diseases that's getting millions and billions of dollars of money funding for research, and it's like that's been going on since I was a little kid, and there's no breakthrough. And the further rabbit hole I go down, and I learn that um, certain people they are not allowed to go into nature to find what most likely can help the human body. So it's definitely a blessing for everyone that God activates to make those type of videos, like yourself, so we can soak that knowledge up and pass that on to the next generation, to where we can have a much better future. Um, a couple things that I did want to ask you, and it's just advice from whatever knowledge you know of natural herbs. Like my daughter, she suffers from Crohn's. Like someone with Crohn's, what are some of the natural things that they could be doing to help with that?
We've seen many people heal from Crohn's, and right now I choose my words carefully because, again, I can be thrown in jail. But what we find is that the body can heal itself, and in Psalm 104 verse 14, the Bible says that God gave herbs for the service of man. So the herbs can't heal you, but what they do is they work with the body. That's why I love that verse. They come in to serve you. But there are some foods that we have found irritate the lining of the gastrointestinal tract if there is a sensitivity there. And with Crohn's, IBS, colitis, any of those conditions of irritation of the gastrointestinal tract, these 5 foods we have found are irritating. One is dairy, the other is wheat. Wheat was hybridized in the 50s, was changed. That's why it can be irritating. Oats. Now, a lot of people, or I think in America you call it oatmeal. Oats is high in a plant chemical called lectins, and lectins can, if there's inflammation in the body, it can increase the inflammation. And peanuts are commonly contaminated with mold, so they are best eliminated in a sensitive gut. And the 5th one is refined sugar. We find that when those foods are eliminated, the gut can start to heal, because the only thing touching the gut is the food we eat. So if someone has, a real flare-up, one of the easiest things to handle is just vegetable stews or soups, because when you cook that fibre, it just softens it. And the herb that we have found at Misty Mountain, and people have testified to me that makes a huge difference, is slippery elm. And slippery elm is the powdered bark of the slippery elm tree. And when you put hot water with slippery elm, it goes almost like a soft jelly. So the more water you put in, the thinner the jelly. But it contains a growth stimulant. And because it contains a growth stimulant, when the person takes it by mouth and it's going down the gastrointestinal tract, It's coating, soothing, and healing. It also gives a bit of form to the stool if there's irritation. So that is what we have found. For people who have this quite severely, we add a little golden seal. And golden seal is called king of tonics to all mucous membranes. So we might do 8 parts slippery elm, one part golden seal powder and 1 part myrrh. Now myrrh is a gum resin, and this gum resin also is a great antibacterial, and it's called a herb that helps to heal the lining of the gut. We call it gut repair, that little mix, but we find that is particularly helpful when you've got someone who has severe irritation in the lining of the gut. If someone's going to the bathroom 10 times a day, they might take this mix every 2 hours. So it all depends on how much they're going, as to how much they take. So I bring up a Bible verse at this point that I think is very applicable, and it's found in Exodus chapter 15, verse 26, where God says, if you will diligently hearken to the voice of the Lord thy God, hearken is listen, and do that which is right in his sight, do right to the body, give ear, when listening again, to his commandments, and keep all of these statutes. God says, I will put none of these diseases upon thee that I put upon the Egyptians, for I am the Lord that healeth thee. Now the Egyptians had all the diseases that we have today. Archaeologists dig up bones and they test the bones and they find they had all the diseases we had. But notice what God says. He said twice, he said, you've got to listen and do that which is right. So listen to the body. If the person's going 10 times a day to the bathroom, stop those foods, start taking those herbs and listen. What does the body say? The pain slows down. The bleeding stops. The cramping stopped. I'm going 4 times instead of 10 times. Listen. So one of the hardest things I have to do is to teach people to listen and listen to what their body's telling them. If it works, do it. See, if you will diligently hearken, listen to the voice of the Lord thy God in your body and do that which is right. Please, I say to people, do that which is right to your body. If it's wrong, your body will tell you. There'll be a reaction. If it's right, your body will say, thank you, that's nice. Well, I have a broken wrist at the moment and I have it in plaster, and it loves it when it's in the sling. And I say, I'm hearing you. We'll keep it in the sling. We'll keep those bones immobilized until they start to heal. So it's listening. Very important point.
You know, that's so true when you brought up the Bible verse and how to listen, when God said to listen, because a lot of people don't. You know, a lot of people say, oh, that's acid reflux. And in our world, there's many, I would say, patches, which, I'll just go grab some Tums, or, I'll go get an acid reflux pill. And like we had on a naturopathic doctor, Dr. Patrick Flynn, and he explained the difference between him and a mainstream doctor is the mainstream doctors are like, let's just say if a house is burning down, the firefighters will come in, spray the fire out and leave, and the house is just a mess. He says, so basically how I approach it is I come in, I get the fire out, and then I'm the carpenter, and first I want to figure out what caused the problem, build the house back up, and make sure we fix the problem. And you banked it right there, because people have been programmed, so to speak, just to patch things up and go to the things that they know that is just going to fix the problem that day. And then let's say another week down the line, eat something that's terrible, and then all of a sudden they're at the same funk and they're laying on the couch with a stomach ache, not feeling too good because they didn't listen to that inner God voice that is alerting them, hey, something's not right here. So I really appreciate you shedding light on that one.
That's right, and I love that illustration. It's like when the fire's in the house, what do? You straight away come in and look at where did it start? What is the cause? Yes, and then you put the fire out with the water, and then you look at restoration, absolutely. And my husband uses this, and I think it's very catchy. He says, medicine radiates, medicates, operates. But what we do is we investigate, we educate, and we rejuvenate. And I think I loved it when I heard him say that. I thought that's absolutely right. And back to this little book in Ministry of Healing, on the same page 127, she says, in case of sickness, cause should be ascertained. Now, if there's a leak in your roof, of course, the first thing the builder does is why is the leak there? Is it a hole in the plumbing? Is it a hole in the roof? If you don't find the cause, you will never have a cure. So she says, ascertain the cause. The next one is unhealthful conditions changed. Get out of the mouldy house. Get out of the house that's been built under huge electrical wires. Find out if there was landfill of chemicals under your house before the house. There's a reason. And also the next point is, so if there's ascertain the cause, unhealthful conditions change, wrong habits corrected. Start drinking more water. Start going to bed earlier. Start eating some nourishing foods. Stop the cigarettes. Stop the coffee. So this is an important part of it. But the fourth one is now assist nature. Assist nature in her efforts to expel impurities and re-establish right conditions back in the system. There's the formula. So no matter, and I'm sure if the house is burning, you do the same thing. How did it start? We've got to change the conditions. We've got to change the habits. Now we assist. To rebuild the system.
Absolutely. And I think the more that, humanity can get that into their consciousness, they can start taking more action. And I don't blame anyone because I don't even blame myself. I mean, we were born into a world where we didn't know some of these things, and we got to a point to where it wasn't cool to listen to our grandmothers anymore. And my Polish grandmother, like you said, cook a lot, eat a lot of vegetables, eat stews and a lot of soups. Now that I look back, my grandmother was doing like she was doing like full body cleanses with some of the things that she cooked. And I look back now and I'm like, wow, because those remedies probably were passed down from her grandparents and parents. But then I would say kind of with my mom's generation to my generation, I don't know how society did it, but it was kind of not cool to listen to grandma. Now you got most people now feeding their kids fast food and going to the bad route, and they're not with those old remedies that was once a blessing to be passed down. And it's pretty sad with society. So like I don't know, I'm going to be sounding like a fan, but it's definitely a blessing to have those videos of you around where we can get back to where once our grandmothers were trying to share to our parents.
You're absolutely right. So we're in a library here because I'm travelling, and we're in a conference room, and I'm very happy for this nice black and white trees behind me. But as we're booking in to get the conference room, a lady came up and she said, "Are you Barbara ONeill? I just want to thank you. Thank you so much for what you've done." Everywhere I go, people say, thank you so much. But when I was in casualty or emergency 2 nights ago, I was there for 8 hours and my eyes were opened. Children were being brought in. Every single child that had been brought in, I could have shown them what to do. They could have gone straight out because 8-hour wait, an 8-hour wait in emergency. One child had gastric. So how come we're taking our children to hospital with gastric? Don't we know the simple things? The other child had a bad cough. Have we forgotten about just the simple lemon and honey drink? Another child, when she put her hand up in the air, it hurt a little bit. Have we forgotten the simple massage, the simple things that we do? Oh, someone got a bit of a burn on their finger. You got an emergency for a burn? What about aloe vera? And another man had a regular heartbeat, and I thought, well, there's a reason for that irregular heartbeat, and one of the most common is caffeine. It causes a crisis response in the body. But then we've got another situation, and that is you can have 10 people have a cup of coffee, but not everyone will get an irregular heart rate. One will have an irregular heart rate. One will be even more dehydrated. Another one, their neurotransmitters will be a little bit disrupted and they won't be able to think clearly. They think clearly at first only because the body thinks it's a crisis, but then there's a corresponding dump. And then another one, I was at a wedding yesterday and a young man came up to me and said, I watch you on YouTube. He said, I used to get muscle cramps. I heard about how caffeine leaches magnesium. I stopped the coffee. I took magnesium. I no longer have stomach cramps. This young man was, I don't know, he looked about 30. These simple things that we can do. And before I was banned, there were 4 doctors that used to get me to give lectures in their town because they knew that if everyone knew these simple natural remedies, it would make life so much easier for those poor nurses and those poor doctors who are run off their feet in the middle of the night, which simple things that a poultice or a lemon and honey drink or a bit of magnesium could easily ease. People have lost that art. I didn't grow up with it. My mother didn't know it. And now I'm the grandmother. I've learnt what I have learnt from when I was 20, other old grandmothers, some still new. And books. I thank God that there are so many books out there. And I've got a book in, the graphic designer is working on it at the moment. I'm calling it Sustain Me. It's a book on natural remedies. It's a handbook. I wanted a very simple little handbook to be in every home so that if there is a sore finger, it'll show you what to do. If there is a sore eye, it'll show you what to do. I start at the head and I go down the whole body so that people can have at their fingertips a very simple book. And I also know that other authors have done similar books. So that's what everyone should have in their home. But it also gets back to education. You know, my children grew up in a home where they knew exactly what to do. If there was a bee sting, if there was a splinter, if there was a cough, because it was just our way of life. And they're all raising their children exactly the same now. I've got 4 grandchildren at my house, one 15-year-old, one 17-year-old, 2 19-year-olds. They're working at our health centre. And, you know, they just go in and they know the ropes because that's how they've been brought up. So it gets back to education. And we can't depend on the government because, unfortunately, the government and the pharmaceutical company are fairly closely connected. Some would say maybe almost bedfellows, but we have to educate ourselves. We have to educate our children ourselves.
Absolutely. And oh my goodness, I didn't know you had a remedy book. I'm definitely going to purchase one of those. And after this interview, when I upload this video, I'll put all your links on there. And if you can have Sylvia send me that link to purchase that book, I'm going to be purchasing that as soon as she sends it to me. Wow, that is unbelievable and awesome. And I agree, everybody needs to have that book. Just like um, here in America, many Americans don't even know their constitutional rights. And there are certain constitutional teachers out there that are just giving little constitutional books for the people to walk around knowing their rights. And it goes back to like your remedy book. I mean, if we took the time to realize how valuable and important it was to spend time with our grandparents before they passed on, we would have been so much better right now. And to have that book, unbelievable. Thank you for writing it. Appreciate it.
So just a small point, it hasn't been printed yet.
Oh, God.
We're hoping that next year it'll be out. Our graphic designer is doing a state-of-the-art job on it. He wanted it to be full color. It's taken a little bit longer than what we wanted, but definitely out by next week, by next year, sorry. But I do have another book called Self-Heal by Design, and that basically, my aim of that book was to look at the true role of microorganisms in disease, to show that germs don't actually cause disease, they're the result of unhealthful conditions. And we looked at what happened in our world in 2020, 2021. The whole world was closed down because of a microorganism. And I wrote this book, 12 years before COVID happened. But when you read my book, you will see there is no need to fear a germ. We need to ask ourselves, well, why is it there? And Florence Nightingale, very famous nurse, she showed very clearly that germs do not cause disease, they're the result of unhealthful conditions. So my book, Self-Heal by Design, it comes at showing that. And I also give the history of this theory, this germ theory, versus the theory that our body can actually heal itself and we don't need to fear the germ. And what I love about the Bible, which I believe is the most amazing health book we have, in 2 Timothy 1 verse 7, the Bible says, I have not given you the spirit of fear. This is God speaking. I have not given you the spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. And fear is what almost took the world down in 2020. God says, there's no need to fear. I've not given you that. He says, I've given you power, love, and a sound mind. And a sound mind looks at this and thinks, now this is not quite right. And you are right. It's so important to know our Constitution. You see, God's government is a government of freedom. And freedom is based on free choice. So any time our freedoms are taken away from us, it's time to stand up. It's time to say, excuse me, but I'm the master of my destiny. I'm the one that chooses what goes into my body and what does not go into my body. It is my God-given right. And you're right, our constitutions in our lands have this built into them. That people don't know their constitutions. It's important to know what your right is. But what I just told you very simply is our God-given right to choose what we do and what we do not do and what goes into our body and what does not.
I absolutely agree. There's many people out there that's definitely working for God right now. That's really stressing that to the people, because many people have been dumbed down in many countries to not know their rights, and I'm sure it's governmentally designed that way because it's easier to control someone that is clueless, like Ricardo Bolsey down there in Australia. That man is really um, fighting a good fight and educating people and letting them know, you got to stand up. I mean, are we going to continue laying down before you know it? I mean, we're not even going to be in existence. And many people here in America are doing the same thing, which I believe God has put in activation and said enough is enough, because there hasn't been too many people that have been willing to come out to be a leader, because everybody's in fear, like you said. Oh, I don't want to lose my job, or oh, I don't want to lose my career, or I don't want to be looking like a bad person. But I mean, at the end of the day, if you're fighting a fight for God, thou shalt not fear. And I think the world's at a breaking point where people are not caring. And I know you had an event today, so I want to respect your time. I did want to ask another question, and I know there's some members on here that probably has questions for you. So I want to ask you, how much more time do you have with us? Oh, your mic's muted, Barbara.
Sorry about that. I've probably got about another 20 minutes.
All right, sounds good. My one last question I have for you, like for people that have lung issues, asthma, people that just quit smoking, what are some of the things that they could do to help clear out their lungs or whatnot?
It might surprise you when I tell you, but there's an incredibly simple thing that you can do. You see, in Genesis 2 verse 7, the Bible says God formed man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and he became a living soul. Now, I want you to notice that middle phrase, nostrils. Many people have become mouth breathers. And when you're breathing through your mouth, it does not do what nose does. Nose purifies the air, nose humidifies the air, nose warms the air, nose balances blood gases, and nose also pressurizes the air, making it perfect for the lungs. Now that's a quick summary of what nose does. And many people have become mouth breathers. Basically, you breathe in and out through your mouth. Dirty air is going into your lungs. So to protect your lungs, it's important to become a nose breather. Many people are mouth breathers because the nose, the sinuses get all blocked up. So then my question is, well, why are the noses blocked up? Usually they're blocked up because of excess mucus. So then I ask, why is there excess mucus? Usually because of those 5 allergen foods I mentioned before, which is dairy and wheat, oats, peanuts, and refined sugar. So stopping those foods helps to clear out the sinuses. So once again, the person can breathe through their nose. When a person has been a mouth breather for a long time, those little canals at the back of the nose actually begin to close up. So it becomes difficult to breathe through the nose. It's a very good illustration. If you don't use it, you will lose it. But if you become a nose breather and keep the mouth closed, then little by little, those little canals start to open up at the back of the nose. So you can change it. Incredible illustration again of everything we need if we have lung problems is actually in us, and it's starting with the nose. There's an excellent book that goes into this in great detail. It's a bestseller. It's called Breath. That's easy to remember, Breath, by James Nestor. And he and his friend block up their noses for 10 days and breathe through their mouth. Sleep apnea goes through the roof. Blood pressure goes through the roof. It's an incredible story, just what happens. And then after 10 days, they unblock the nose and tape up the mouth. And I think it takes about 3 or 4 days. The sleep apnea stops, the snoring stops, the blood pressure comes down, the brain becomes clearer. Just the incredible effect on the body of nose breathing compared to mouth breathing. So I'd like to stress that, nose breathe. And I'd like to introduce you to God's LSD. God's LSD is that we should be breathing long, slow, and deep. So breathing long, slow, and deep allows us to access the full potential of our lungs. And many people are high chest breathers. So long, slow, deep. And here's a great start. And for people who have lung issues, they can start doing this even every half hour or maybe every hour. 5.5 seconds in. Long, slow, deep, nose only. Then 5.5 seconds out. And they can do that 10 times. If a person can't sleep, it's a great thing to do at night. If a person's stressed, relaxes you, stimulates your parasympathetic nervous system, which is your calming nervous system. Great for anyone that's had lung problems, just that slow, low, deep breathing. And by the way, with asthmatics, we have found that asthmatics usually have an allergy to either chemical exposure or mold exposure or the 5 allergen foods I mentioned: dairy, wheat, oats, peanuts, and refined sugar. It can take at least 2 months to see the full result of stopping those foods, but it's important to stop those foods for the health of the respiratory meaning nose, down into the lungs. So they're very simple things that can be done to help the lungs. Also keeping your core muscles strong, because when we stand straight, which we automatically do when our core muscles are strong, it's much easier to breathe long, slow and deep, and exercise. So exercise, strengthening core, running up and down mountains. If you can't run up and down mountains, start running up and down hills, maybe a few stairs. You start where you're at. This gets back to listen. Try these things and see the results.
Wow, thank you for that. I appreciate it so much. And now we'll get into Q&A, because I know you have a lot of people that follow you. I know you're not looking to be put on a pedestal, but you do have a big fan base of people that have been guided to a lot of your craft. So I would love to allow a couple of people to get their questions in, and Kelly will be taking over for questions. And thank you so much for joining us. I am very honored and would love to have you back again.
Hi, Miss Barbara. Hope everything's going well. Good conversation. I'm listening to you in the background. Our first person we have up is Diane, and then after Diane, Hammer Girl. Diane, you're up. Thank you. Diane, you're up. Okay, we'll just go to Hammer Girl, and then we'll come back to Diane. Hammer Girl, you're up.
Hi, Barbara. Hold on, I'm getting feedback. I want to thank you first off for all that you've done. And my question is on strep throat. So I know I've seen some of your remedies on a sore throat, but I wondered if there was something different, especially for a chronic strep throat in children, like multiple times in 1 year. And I'm tending to think there's some sort of biofilm that has to be broken down to get rid of that. But I was just curious as to what your remedy would be.
There's really no difference between strep throat and sore throat. And strep throat is a name that's really just been given probably in the last 15 years. And my children used to get colds and coughs and sore throats. And maybe it was a strep throat and maybe it wasn't a strep throat, but you always follow symptoms. So this is what I always do. I look at the history, and you're telling me there's a bit of a history of this. So I think, if there's a history, that tells me the child possibly has an allergy. And that can be mold exposure, it could be chemical exposure, but quite possibly a allergy to the foods. So the 5 most common allergen foods are dairy, wheat, oats, peanuts, and refined sugar. So if the child continually gets it, you've got to look at that cause, and the history will tell you what it could be. Symptoms, that's the body saying, this is the area I want you to help me with. That's what the symptoms are, which is a sore throat. And what can relieve a sore throat is sucking on ice, just your old-fashioned lemon and honey drink. Sometimes a peppermint tea, a hot peppermint tea can ease it. And also, always when my children had colds, whether it be bronchitis, whether it be just a head cold, a strep throat or whatever, anything in the respiratory, they would eat very lightly, often just fruit for a couple of days. So eating very lightly, often it can recover quite quickly. But also know, and please, every mother and father and grandparent, every human being, the body can heal. So a lot of mothers think that if their child gets strep throat, they have to take an antibiotic, but they do not. They do not. The body will heal by itself, but also give it a little bit of time. So in case of sickness, we're looking at history, we're looking at symptoms, that tells you what to do, and then you look at response. And if the sucking of the ice brings relief, suck on ice. If the lemon and honey drink brings relief, lemon and honey drink. It's that simple.
Thank you.
Okay. Next we have Tim. Tim, you're up. I'll unmute you.
Actually, it's Sydney, Kelly.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Sydney, you're up, and then Tim.
Hey there. Thank you for taking my question. I actually had a similar question that the one that was asked right before me. My daughters are battling a bad mucus cough and the seasonal thing going on right now. And I was just going to ask your opinion on what you would recommend to do. But I think the lemon and honey thing I'm going to try. And if you have any other things to help expel that mucus, I would love to hear your opinion on that. Thank you.
I love what Florence Nightingale said. She said, disease is a process of repair. Did you know a cold is a house clean? And if you do nothing, it'll run its course. So that's what you've got to remember. It's going to run its course. I'm being very careful here because I'm in Australia. I have a ban on me in Australia. I'm forbidden to give any health advice. So I'm answering in a roundabout ways. My husband doesn't want me put in jail. But remember, the body can heal itself, and remember the cold is often just a house clean. But if children get common colds, regularly, again and again and again, they're having a lot of house cleans. So why do they need a lot of house cleans? Usually because of allergy to those 5 food groups that I told you about. Do you know what I've had people tell me? Once they stopped the dairy, wheat, oats, peanuts and refined sugar, they no longer had an allergy to the pollen, to the dust mite. So that's interesting.
Okay, thank you. Next person is Tim. You're up.
Hi, Barbara. Thank you for taking my question. During the show, you've mentioned a few times mold exposure. What's your recommendation for detox or remedy once you've had mold exposure? And then my second part to the question is, you also mentioned that you had like a gag order on giving health advice. How long is that in effect for? Is it permanent, or is it will it run out at some point? Thank you.
I have a life ban on me. I'm forbidden to give any health advice for the rest of my life in Australia, just in Australia. You will notice that I'm directing you to where you can get information so you can find out for yourself. But the question you had on detoxing from mold, it's very sad that you can have mold exposure for a few hours, but it can take sometimes a year to get it out of the body. I have written a whole book on this, and my daughter she lives in Wisconsin. She has a website. It's www.mistymountainusa.com, and she sells my book, Self-Heal by Design. And Self-Heal by Design, it gives you the history of mold, but it also shows how you can detox from mold with dietary, also with herbs, with several things. So my suggestion would be to get the book.
Thank you. You said that was MistyMountainUSA.com? All right. Thank you so much. Excellent. Have a good night.
All right, Miss Barbara, I just had a quick question. How much longer do you have left with us?
Oh, your mic's muted,
Yeah.
Barbara.
Sorry, I have 10 more minutes.
Okay, perfect. The next person up, we appreciate your time, Miss Barbara. The next person is Donna. You're up. Thank you.
Hi, Barbara. Boy, one of my heroes. Number one hero, should I say. I've been healing breast cancer naturally. I have a probably a golf ball size on my left breast, and I have been using the castor oil packs. I actually just hopped on. It's like a miracle. So I don't know if I'm allowed to ask a question or not. I just know that I've watched your videos, and from what I understand, it should just be staying on there day and night, day and night. I actually have also used black salve before, and what it's done, I don't know if I haven't used it a strong enough one or what, but boy, oh boy, from under the armpit, excuse me, fellas, but to the nipple, everything, man, it was pulling and pulling, like it was definitely detaching. And I think that's what's brought it to the surface. Like you really can see the actual cells, like it's to the surface on my skin. It's left some, like it will scab up because it's only pulled some of it, like literally out. I seen the actual cells. So I've still been putting castor oil on top of that, and it like softens the cells and kind of opens where the scabs were. I mean, it's nothing gross. It may sound it, but I'm dealing with it. I'm trusting God more than anything, and my heroes that are not in the crazy medical hospital, corrupt system. So I'm not fearing it all. I just don't know because I literally popped on with the guy before me. And I'm like, oh my God, live? No way. No way. So I don't know what you can answer or what. And I guess my question is, you know, I guess the castor oil can really bust it up, and my faith is strong. My diet's not perfect. I do have to be honest. I don't even want to say, "Oh, I'm human," and act like cancer isn't a big deal. It is, but I am human, and I know
I can answer a few things there.
good.
The cancer certainly will do it, and it's effective, but it can actually be very painful. So it's actually, you're just doing what you can. But if you do apply it, try and it's better to apply it a few months apart because it's quite I don't know. I know some women that they've chosen not to do that because it's so dramatic and painful. They just do the castor oil. The castor oil is very gentle and it penetrates deeper than any other oil. And so applying the castor oil is very good. My book, Self Heal by Design, includes dietary programs that you can do because diet and lifestyle are very important. And whenever there is breast cancer, it's vital that the hormones be balanced. And my daughter's website, Misty Mountain USA, you can order, she's got a couple of yam creams there. The yam creams can balance the hormones. She's got an Anna's Wild Yam Cream, which is an Australian one, and she's got a Comfort one, which is the American one. So basically, implementing those simple things, you should get results.
God bless you for everything you do. I know He does. And you are a prayerful woman. I know that as well. Thank you so very much.
Okay, we appreciate it. We're going to squeeze in one, maybe two, depending on time. Avra, I apologize if I messed your name up. You're next, and then Deborah, if we have time. Thank you.
That's right. It's Avra. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then one more, hopefully, is Deborah. And if we didn't get to you, we apologize. Thank you.
Okay, cool. I'll keep it short. Barbara, along the line of the cancer, the different types of cancer, what's your thoughts on soursop?
Is that a slightly Australian accent I hear?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. The soursop, that certainly can help with cancer. There are many things. I have about 50 authors in my library at home. I've got a lot of books in my library at home who have all helped people conquer cancer. Some do vitamin C, some do the black salve, some do the
Bicarb.
do the bicarb, some will do the apricot kernel seeds, some will do soursop, the Essiac tea. So there are certainly different things that can come in and help. I found that that there are three common denominators with all of these different remedies, and one is cancer thrives in an acid environment. Cancer consumes 15 times the glucose of any other cell, and cancer also hates oxygen. So they're the three ways that we come at, and I cover this in my book. And Dr. Otto Warburg got a Nobel Prize for his discovery of this in 1943, by the way. But all these other ones that you and I have just mentioned, they're little additives that certainly can help.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we appreciate your time. The last person we have up is Deborah, and then I'll hand it back to Mike. I appreciate you coming on tonight. Deborah, you're up. If you push the blue button in the middle, you can speak.
This is Deborah. My granddaughter is 20 years old, and she has pediatric autoimmune neuropsychiatric syndrome, which makes her behave much younger than 20. She's brilliant, very artistic, but she suffers from anxiety. She screams, she pulls her hair, she flails if it's raining, or if she thinks she's dying from some pain. So she won't go to the doctor. She's afraid to leave the house. So do you think dietary changes might help that? And do you think that perhaps PANS is more a vaccine injury than anything else?
That's one of the first things I look at is vaccine injury. And unfortunately, vaccine injury is huge today. So whenever we see something like that, there are a few things we look at. Remember, ascertaining the cause, looking at the history. It can be vaccine injury. It can also be a hormonal imbalance. Many times with especially women, when there are emotional things, it can be a hormonal imbalance. But you asked if dietary and lifestyle changes can help. Absolutely. We have found in every case just simple changes can actually have quite a profound effect. It's always much more difficult dealing with psychiatric cases. I worked as a psychiatric nurse for almost 4 years, but I really didn't see it work. I just saw people drugged up. But I see people's lives change now through dietary and lifestyle changes. Dr. Neil Nedley, he's written a book called Depression: A Way Out, and he's been having great results with dietary and lifestyle changes with depression and anxiety. And also Dr. Bruce Fife, he's written a book called Stop Autism Now, another one called Stop Alzheimer's Now, and he shows how dietary and lifestyle changes, but also the introduction of coconut oil can help. So there are a few areas that you can explore there.
Thank you very much.
And Barbara, like I said, it's definitely a pleasure. It's definitely an honor. I'll definitely love to have you back again, because I'm sure there's so many people that can use direction and guidance. So we so much appreciate you. We appreciate all your videos. And I do have one more question before you leave. Did you say your daughter lived in Wisconsin? Your mic's muted, Barbara.
Yes, sorry about that. She lives in Baldwin, Wisconsin. She's just about across the border. So when I visit her. I fly into Minneapolis, but she does sell my book, and she also sells the yam cream.
Wow, that's awesome because I live in Wisconsin myself. And it's mistymountains.com is where your daughter's selling the books, or?
No, it's Misty Mountain USA. So www.mistymountainusa.com.
Wow, awesome. I'm definitely gonna buy those books, and maybe next time we can have you and your daughter on. That would be awesome.
Okay.
You have a good night, Barbara. Thank you for joining us. It's really an honor.